Hello and welcome to What's on My Mind with Fiona. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. Today I'm going to be talking about some things that have been going on in the news this week because there's a lot happened this week. And I will remind you that this podcast is purely an opinion-based podcast with me just discussing ideas, opinions, and my thoughts about things. I'm not speaking on these things as an expert, just simply as having a conversation, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about, it's a bit hard to avoid in the news this week, is that there was an assassination attempt on a former president. I don't know if you call him former or if they're still called just president, and possibly future President Trump. Anyway, that happened this week, and unfortunately, a man was killed there, protecting his wife and daughter. What an amazing man! And I've just my sympathy, my compassion goes to that family, and there were some people quite injured. I don't know to what level, but there were people injured there. So I just want to acknowledge that before I start talking about the political side of things. But yeah, I just really acknowledge that people were harmed there, and I feel for those people. And also, I want to acknowledge that there's not a lot of detail about the assassin yet. So I don't really want to comment about that person's motives because I don't think that is clear at this point in time. What I will say, though, is people's reaction to this I found really disgusting. So regardless of what you think of different politicians, being happy that someone has tried to kill them, tried to assassinate them, and that other people, there's some people that are not only happy about that, but they also don't care about other people being killed because, hey, they're Trump supporters. They deserve it, don't they? That's disgusting. So I find there's a couple of moments actually that I've experienced in the last sort of 12 months that have been, for me, moments where I feel like they're unmasking moments where you look around and you see who people really are. And one was last year on the 7th of October when Hamas attacked Israel, and there's all the dreadful things that happened there. Now, again, whatever you do and don't believe about their history or about what's happened since, that day was just appalling. It was just like this, such horrific things that happened on that day. And before Israel had even done anything in retaliation, there were actually people celebrating the deaths of babies and rape of women and women at music festivals and all of this. There's people who were applauding that and celebrating it before anything happened. What's happened since then, that's a whole different conversation, and you can argue till the cows come home about that. But just the actual celebrating of what happened on that day is disgusting. And so I saw the people who did that. I have since seen the people who celebrated Trump's assassination attempt, and some of them also celebrated the people who were harmed when that happened. That's disgusting. Where's our humanity? I think that we've gotten so divided that it used to be that you just thought the other person on the other side was misguided or had bad ideas, or for the most part you didn't think the other person was evil, you just thought they had bad ideas. But these days everyone is deciding that people on the other side are evil. Now, I know there have been times in our history where there was evil, such as Hitler and Stalin and Lenin, and anyway, Mao Zedong. There's been a lot of evil dictators in our history. Disgusting, and it's surprising because people only talk about Hitler; they don't talk about the others. They should talk about all of them. And I think it's Pol Pot in Cambodia. I know there's been so many, right? So there's been historically there's been a lot of evil people who've done evil, terrible things. Now, in Western politics, in places like Australia and the US and New Zealand and places like that, that's not the case, right? And this is where I talk about how language matters so much and why I really emphasize talking about language quite a lot, because what I've seen for that last plus years is the media and a whole bunch of anyway, just to say a whole bunch of people all trying to make Trump out to be Hitler. Now, you may dislike him, you may never vote for him, you may hate him, you may think he's terrible, but he's not Hitler. He's already been president for 4 years or whatever. We've already seen who he is. He's not Hitler, right? You might disagree with his policies, but he's not Hitler. So when you spend 8+ years saying that someone's a Hitler, they're a threat to democracy, they're going to, the world's going to end when they get in, don't be surprised when people do get extreme about these things. So I know that I hear people say all this stuff, but the evidence just is not there. He's just got different opinions and different policies, and you might disagree with them, and good on you. You've got every right to do so. But he's not Hitler, and so we don't. People, I think people also, if you convince people of that enough, people often talk about, well, okay, if you went back in time and you were able to assassinate Hitler, would you do that? And I think a lot of people would say yes, and I could understand why. I might be one of them. I don't know, because if you thought you could just stop all of that, the Holocaust and all those things, sure, I can understand why you would want to do that. But comparing that with now, it's just not the same thing. Not what's going on in the US. It might be in other places, but certainly not the US. So I think that we are just making up things that aren't actually truly there, and emergencies aren't truly there, and using a lot of extreme language. And we are making people on the other side, just people who vote differently to us, out to be monsters. And there are monsters at the outer edges. There's far left and far right people who are monsters, but the majority of people are in the middle. And the majority of people actually want similar things, and they care about their family and having a job and having a good life and all of the usual things. And I think that we need to remember that. And in our rhetoric and talking about these things, we need to talk to the person first, deal with the person first, and have some humanity. It's wishing that there's very few people in the world who I think would be okay to wish they died, if any. Well, I suppose there would be some evil dictators, but he's not one of them, right? So anyway, I just think it's disgusting celebrating that and wishing that, and I would feel that way regardless of whether it had been Biden or whether it had been Trump. I would feel the same way. It's disgusting to celebrate that, and it's disgusting for the people who actually celebrated the man's death who saved his family. That's just too far. So I think we're just going to back off on this rhetoric, and if you've got people that you disagree with, have a conversation with them. It's worth having a conversation, because all we do is the shouty shaming people, rather than the actual just, well, why do you believe that? Okay. And you can still at the end kind of go, okay, well, I don't agree with you. But in majority of cases, that person's just not a bad person. They just have a different opinion, okay? The other thing is too, because of the way social media works, is we actually hear different things. And I can actually even confirm that to you on the weekend when the assassination attempt happened. I jumped straight onto Twitter/X. It's called X now. And there was a lot of information there. And then I looked at what was happening on sort of mainstream sites and mainstream TV. They were reporting very different things. And even since then they have. So I found that actually ultimately X was the most accurate, because now all the information coming out, they had the most accurate reporting. So there was up-to-date reporting where people were saying actually what was going on. Still differing opinions, because there's left and right on X, which is great. You need the balance. But other channels were kind of saying that Trump fell, or there were some loud noises and he was taken off stages at the stage, even when we knew that wasn't true. So the problem is now that we are actually seeing completely different truth of what happened. Like, we're just being fed different stories. So we don't see each other. We don't see each other as human. We don't see each other as someone with a different opinion, and we don't agree, because we get a completely different story. So depending on what media you choose to watch, or if you watch a broad range, or if you only stick with one thing, or whatever it is, essentially the only story you get is the story that media want you to see. So that is challenging. That's why also we're so divided, because you only see the opinion of whoever it is that you're watching. So, yeah, I think we've got to have conversations more with people we disagree with, and just learn why they think the way they do, and realize that not everyone is evil, even though they're all being made out to be. So the other thing I wanted to comment on actually is something that sort of stemmed from this is there's been a cancellation of a lot of people in regards to the comments they've made about this. And I'm in two minds about this, because I'm not a fan of cancel culture. And a lot of that has happened over the years, and it's been disgusting. And a lot of things that happened during the pandemic and that sort of thing were disgusting. And so many people were cancelled. And there are people who've all turned out to they were right, they were telling the truth, and they should have been allowed to be heard at the time. So I do have a real problem with cancel culture. At the same time, I don't believe in any kind of calling for violence, any sort of support and calling for violence. So I am against that. What happened is, you probably heard about it, but in Sydney, Tenacious D were doing a show in Sydney. It was just Jack Black's band, and his partner in crime, Kyle Gass, made a comment about the assassination attempt, which was, I think, maybe the day after the assassination attempt. And what he'd said, I was just looking here again to see what exactly it was he said. I think it was something along the lines of, I hope they don't miss Trump next time, or something like that. Where is it? I had it here. And here you go. He said, because I sang happy birthday to him, it was his birthday. Jack asked him what he wished for, and he replied with, "Don't miss Trump next time." Now, do I think this is appalling? Yeah, I think it is. Do I think, firing squad kind of stuff? No. Look, I think he's kind of their funny band, and they're meant to be funny. At the same time, I do believe that he probably actually does think that. I don't know for sure. I don't know what someone else thinks, but I know that there's a lot of people who do feel that way, because they've been just fed so much stuff in the media. And I think Jack Black, I would not be surprised if he felt the same, because he's a big supporter of Biden. We know that. But Jack didn't come out straight away and say anything on the night. Some of the audience clapped. I don't know if they all thought it was good, but obviously some of them did, and they just moved on. And so the next day, what has happened is essentially Jack Black has announced that the whole tour has been cancelled. He's even questioned his future relationship with Kyle. So pretty much the whole band's just kind of imploded, whatever the language is, and done by the looks of things at this point in time, based on that statement that Kyle made. And I understand that Jack wants to distance himself from Kyle, because he's got this big career in Hollywood, Disney, all that sort of stuff. It's tricky though, isn't it? Because I think that, wow, if I'd been friends with someone for 30 years like that, I'd like them to support me. And I think it was right for Kyle to apologise, and he did. He has apologised. I think they should have cleared it up on the night. I think as soon as he said it, I think Jack should have said, "Oh, look, that's not funny. It's not funny today. We don't want to incite violence. Believe what you like, but yeah, let's not do that." They didn't. The next day, they both apologised, and I think as a friend, though, I would like to think that that Jack would stand by my side, and they probably would have come out together and made a statement together and said, "Look, we really stuffed up last night," and Jack should have said, "I should have stopped it," and Kyle should have said, "It was bad taste," and all that. And I think it should have been a joint thing. And I think it's even though I dislike it, I think it's a forgivable offence. But anyway, Jack has decided to save himself. Good, bad, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know all the details, so I'm just speculating. So there might be details I don't know about. Anyway, so I don't know if we'll see Tenacious D again based on that. But that's sort of what's happened there. Look, the other thing I've seen is I've seen people that have lost their job in the US. Now, some of them I think it's justified, because there's people who worked in government in different public roles where I feel like roles where they should be fair and reasonable and balanced. And if you're in a role like that and you're celebrating people trying to assassinate the president, that is not okay. So I understand some cases where people have lost their job, but I think there was someone is it Home Depot or somewhere lost their job because of what she said. And yeah, what she said was bad, but wow, I mean, low paid, kind of minimal paid workers losing their job for an opinion is pretty harsh. So yeah, it's one of those things. Like I don't like cancel culture. I also think it's was disgusting things to say, and celebrating that sort of stuff is awful. Should everyone lose their job over saying certain things? No, not really. But I think some, depending on what your role is, possibly. But yeah, it's tricky stuff. It's this is the reason I started this podcast, is really to start these conversations. I don't pretend to be right about it all. I am really just talking about it and discussing it and saying what I think based on the little bit of information I have at this point in time. So anyway, I don't know what your opinion is. I'd like to hear what your opinion. And again, if you want to just yell and carry on, go elsewhere. But if you want to just join the conversation and actually respectfully say, "Oh no, I think you're wrong about this," or "I think I'd do this," or "I think I agree with you," whatever, I'd love to hear. So the other thing is, and another sort of tricky one is in regards to the Secret Service. And I've been listening a lot to some podcasts and things around this. One of them is with Dan Bongino, who was in the Secret Service. So he's pretty clear about these things, because I don't pretend to know anything about it. I don't. I only know what I'm learning from people like Dan and some other commentators as well, other people who've been involved in the Secret Services. But that was an appalling failure. I mean, he survived and they jumped on him. The people who were on the ground and jumped on him did their job. Yeah, that they did a great job. But overall, that it was an appalling failure. That should have never happened. There should have been someone on that roof. There was planned to be someone on that roof, I heard, and they didn't show up, but they should have noticed that they didn't show up. Looks like the guy had been there for a while. They had spotted him earlier, but they didn't do anything about it. If you spot the guy there, wouldn't you just get Trump off stage? Anyway, appalling failures, and some heads do need to roll there, in my opinion. And in regards to the women on the Secret Service team, I got a real problem with this. So I don't. Okay, so I grew up in a time where women weren't treated equally, where women weren't even. I was a secretary and wasn't allowed to wear trousers in the office, right? And you had to wear pantyhose, otherwise there was all these rules around women, and lots and lots of discrimination and sexual innuendos and all sorts of things. So I grew up in a time with all of that, and it's really awful. And so I'm really glad that we're getting over that stuff and we're getting better at that stuff. And I'm also glad that women today have more opportunity to explore and do other careers and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's great. However, I don't believe in changing the requirements just to fit categories. So the woman who's in charge of the Secret Service, who I actually think should resign or be fired, because she's clearly she's not doing her job. She is all about 30% of women to be in the Secret Service by 2030. That's her big goal. And she's done interviews and videos and stuff about this. I think there's more important goals. I would say that keeping your protectees alive, that's probably a number one goal, okay? 30% of women by 2030, that's not the big goal. It shouldn't be the big goal. Now, can women be in the Secret Service? Yes, I'm sure they can. However, to do it, they should actually fulfill the exact same requirements that the men have to. I don't care, men, women, whatever they are, right? If you are going into a job that requires a certain physical requirement, you should be able to fulfill that. For example, I shouldn't be allowed to join the fireys because I couldn't lift someone and carry them out of a building, or hoses and this and that. I couldn't do any of that, right? I would be pathetic and useless. Now, not all women would be, but I definitely would be, right? I should not be applying for that job, and I should not be given that job because I am not up for it. Now, there are super fit women who definitely are up for those kind of things, and that is fantastic. And they should definitely be treated equally and given opportunities for those roles. However, in the Secret Service, my understanding, based on what Dan Bongino has explained, is if you have to be at least the same size as your protectee. So, for example, Donald Trump Trump is 6'3". So the people around him really need to be around the same height or taller. So you just cannot physically protect someone if you can't. The idea is that they jump in front of the president or whoever it is they're protecting. That is their job. Their job is to jump in front of them and be the person that gets hit instead of the president. Now, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to do that. I would actually be the person cowering on the stage and hiding. That would be me, right? I'm honest about it. That's how I am, which is why I would never go for a job like that, right? I think that there's evidence that some of the people who were there on that stage, they're on the wrong job. That's not the job for them. Now, you need someone with enough testosterone, enough guts to actually go up. Those men, the way they just got up and just jumped on him was amazing. So that's what you need. You need those people. And if you're moving a protectee, for like when they were moving him from the stage to the car, they knew that there was a woman there in that group, that huddle, which left a big opening because she was like 5 foot something, right? So there was about a foot of space. And at one point she bent down as well. It's about a foot of space. That just doesn't work, right? It's not against women or anything like that. That doesn't work, right? If it was a man who was that height, same problem, okay? So in our interest of equity and all that jazz, which I don't believe in equity either. I believe in equality, not equity. Equity is equality of outcome. I don't believe in that. I believe in equality of opportunity. Women should be in roles that they fit and they suit, and anyone should be, right? So essentially, if you are going for a job, you should get it because you're the best qualified to do it, regardless, man, woman, whatever nationality you are, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? The best qualified. And should we make sure that that women have equal opportunities with other people? Certainly, and it's important that we acknowledge that we need to be more, I get that there wasn't diversity and that there needs to be a certain level of diversity, but diversity not at the cost of safety, not at the cost of function and safety and all of that. So the top thing needs to be, is this person qualified for the job and can they do it? And then after that, if you want to tick your diversity boxes, go for your life, whatever. Anyway, that's my 2 cents about that. I just think that you don't, and it does not do women any favors. It does not do women any favors, because one of those women in particular, if not two of them, they've been turned into memes on the internet that people are laughing at, and that's awful for them as well, to be put in that position. So putting people in jobs that they're not prepared for, that they're not able to do, and then watching them flounder, alive across the world, in everyone's seen it, and not be able to do it is terrible. But what's even more terrible is if a president is killed, whether it's Trump or whoever it is, that changes everything. And that could have, who knows what could have happened if he was killed. Some people think that might be a good thing, and it's terrible. I think it's terrible to think that. But the civil unrest, all those issues, I don't think it's a good thing for an American president to be assassinated, whoever they are, and that could have changed everything, like I said, and leaving that open, leaving that as a possibility of something could happen, really dangerous. Heads need to roll at the Secret Service. That's disgusting. And at all of these people, we're going to do 30% of this and that, ticking boxes. No, do your job. Your number one job is to actually do the thing that role is for. And then after that, secondary or third thought might be about diversity or whatever, but it's got to be people who are suited to the role, and that works best for the job and for the people all the people involved. Anyway, I am thinking of the people who were involved on the day who have been traumatized by people who've lost people in their lives and people who have been injured. My thoughts and my heart goes out to those people. And anyway, that's just my thoughts for this week of some of the things that have happened. And overall, I would just say, I think that we just need to start having conversations, and I think we all need to, whatever media you follow, if you're only seeing one side of it, open yourself up to the other side, even if it's just to learn what the other side thinks and you're still not changing your mind, whatever. But I think it's important that if we know what the other side thinks, we can know that for the most part, most people are well-intentioned. Most of us are sort of somewhere in the middle, and most of us are well-intentioned, and stop seeing each other as enemies, and stop celebrating when horrific things happen to people. Man, politics, you might have your politics in your favourite team and your party and your favourite president, whatever, But celebrating death and destruction, that's just not okay. We need to find our humanity again as well. I think this online life that we have where, yeah, well, we're just behind a keyboard sort of thing, behind a microphone, we're a bit insulated from reality. And I think we need to remember that it's people that we're talking about. So anyway, that's my say for this week, and I'd love to hear your opinion. I'm on Rumble and YouTube if you want to comment on there. Otherwise, and all the usual podcast places. I'll see you next week. Please, like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Bye.